Well, hello! I made this video as a tutorial for you to see what you can do with the new Picture It collection Ilse and I designed for Elizabeth Craft Design, and it's part of our Artjournal Specials range. And here you see the black square traveler's notebook that's part of our new collection, and I'm going to alter that and show you what you can do with this really cool canvas. So I'm starting with a heavy gesso that I'm spreading around on the journal. It's just a messy process because I'm using a brush, my fingers, and here I dab a little with a tissue just to get a really cool effect for the background, then spreading out the paint a little bit more with my brush and fingers, so till I'm happy with the way it all looks. It's just the first layer, of course. I'm heat setting it to work on top of it with my next layers. So after this is completely dry, I'm going to work with crackle paint. So it has to be really dried, and then I can go on top of it with this stencil. This stencil is part of a stencil pack. We designed 10 different stencils for this collection, and I'm using this one with the crackle paste, as I already told you, and I'm just going to move it around on the journal, so I make my own little design on it, just going from right to left, and I'm not putting too much on the bottom part of the journal because I know I'm going to cover that with something else, so I really don't need to use my stenciling there. Here I'm heat setting it again. This crackle paste works well with a heat tool. You have to read the label on your crackle paste if you want to use it, because not all crackle paste heat set very well, so maybe you have to wait for it to air dry. Just be mindful of that. So after this is completely dried, I'm going to take my watercolors and I'm going to put them on top. The crackle paste, of course, is a product with some plastic in it, so it's going to resist parts of my watercolor, and that's a really cool effect. I'm using a blue and greenish, like teal color watercolor paint for my background, and I'm just putting it in splashes on there, and when I dried it I'm going to put some more splatters on it because I really like the splatter effect, just to give it even more of a mixed media background. I'm going to use acrylic ink in white, and I'm going to splatter that on top of my dried watercolor. Be mindful it has to be dry because else the ink will going to be diluted by the watercolor and you just won't get the same effect. The acrylic ink can be heat set again, and then the painting part of the background is completely finished. Just have to be sure it's all dry to go on top of it with my next layer. So here I have some corrugated cardboard and I'm going to use that. First I'm going to pull out the elastic so I can see what I have to work with, and here is some really cool fabric, and I really like the yellow with the blue teal color and a combination of those two, so that is what I wanted to use. Here I'm going to put my fabric on top of the corrugated cardboard, and I'm going to use my sewing machine for that, and I'm just fitting it around my journal, and I'm just leaving the fabric a little bit longer so I can bind my journal, close it with the fabric when it's all ready. The next thing I'm going to use is some tulle, and I'm just going to put that behind my cardstock. I'm just playing around with it a little bit and thinking about how I want to build this page. So here I have this die, and I'm just fitting that behind fabric just to see if that goes well. It's a Polaroid die from our new Picture It collection, and as the name already says, it's all about journaling your memories, about your picture making and all that fun stuff. And if you want to see the complete collection, you can go to artjournalspecials.com, and then you will find the complete Artjournal Specials collection. I made the tulle onto my cardstock with the tiny texture from Tim Holtz. Really like using that to put things together. So when that's finished, it's time to die cut all my things. So here I have the photo frame, and I die cutted it out of our new paper pack, and now I'm going to make a little shaker. So here I have some glue, and I'm going to put that on the plastic pouch. I'm just going to cut the pouch on the right size, and then I'm going to close it with my sewing machine. And when I'm almost ready, of course I left the top part open. I'm going to put in some of the puzzle pieces, and that's a part of the new collection as well. You can also make a puzzle out of a picture. Here are some sprinklets. It's a color wheel, and I just like that because the theme of a new paper pack is a rainbow of colors, so I had to make a little rainbow on the front of my journal. So just playing around with the puzzle pieces and the little color wheels inside, and then I'm going to sew the top part of the die, and now I can cut off the overhanging piece of plastic. And now my shaker piece is all finished to put on the front of my journal. So just have to put all these things aside so I can go on with the next step, and that's gluing this cardboard on top of my journal. Just have to use enough glue because you don't want that to come off when using the journal, of course. So I'm using Nouveau glue. Really like the way that works. It always dries transparent, and when it's stuck, it really is stuck. Using these clips just to make sure it all stays in place until the glue is completely dried. So just another one, and now I can let it dry like that. Putting back the little Polaroid, and now I'm going to use one of our new stamp sets. And here you can make a wax seal, looks like a wax seal, with stamps. So I'm first going to stamp the bases with the Versamark, and then I'm using some powder so I can melt that. I really like the effect because the embossing powder, it looks like a wax seal. So just heat setting it and letting it melt. So that's my first part of my wax seal, and now I'm going to stamp with StazOn. First going to stamp the circle, and I really didn't like the way the circle turned out, but now I'm watching this video and I think, oh, you can't see that it isn't a perfect circle, but I saw that I didn't use enough of my StazOn to have a really crisp image. Here you can see that I used the rainbow. All these little stamps can be used inside of those wax seal stamps. So now I'm cutting out all the pieces, just a little bit out of frame I see now, but you get the idea of cutting out those stamped image. It's just a circle that I'm cutting out here, and then I'm going to put that in the middle of that wax seal. I'm just going to use a little bit of glue to put it on there, and then I'm going to give the inside of the wax seal a little bit of color with my watercolors. I really like that effect. I also stamped on watercolor paper, so that works really nice. Just going to put some more pigment on the bottom and then just pull it to the top of the stamped image, and just a little bit of a playful effect. And I really like that as an element on my cover. Here you see an edge die. We have some different edges in this collection, and this is of course with the picture it, a little picture frame. So I'm just now taking off the clips and going to see how my journal looks when I'm closing it. And now I'm going to put that on the front as well. I just didn't like that torn edge because I just found it a little bit too big, so I'm just ripping off the little piece on the bottom. And when I'm happy with the way this looks, I want to stamp the word favorites. And at first I thought I'm going to stamp that on the white watercolor paper as well, but then I changed my mind and I'm going to stamp it again with StazOn. I'm going to stamp it on some shrink foil. So here you see me stamping it on the shrink foil, and then I'm going to cut it out. And while I'm doing my thing with the shrink foil, I thought, oh, that fountain pen, that's also in one of our new stamp sets, together with that word favorites. I'm going to stamp that on the shrink foil as well. I'm going to color it. And to color the shrink foil, I most like to use my Faber-Castell artist bit pens, because you can really work with them. They don't dry immediately, and then I use a little Q-tip just to pull the color upwards, so I have a little bit of a shadow look in there, just dabbing it with the Q-tip. First I'm going in with the yellow, and then I'm going to use a little bit blue and green, just mixing it on the shrink foil so it matches with the colors of the journal. And you have to work very lightly, because when you're shrinking the image, of course all the pigments get pulled together as well, and then your image will get a lot darker. So if you already use really dark colors and then you're going to shrink it, it gets a little bit too dark actually. So that's why I'm keeping it light, and you will see me shrinking it in a little bit, and then you will see the end result when it gets a lot darker, when the pigments are all pulled together. Just waiting for a little bit for me to get ready to shrink it. And here I have my Sizzix tool. I really like that tool to shrink all my elements, because with this tool they don't stick together, and you can really get a really nice effect quite easily. So shrinking it, then using this to get it all flat. Now the favorites word, that becomes really tiny, but I really like those plastic elements for my journals. So now I'm going to glue all my elements on top of my journal. First the shaker Polaroid, using my clips again to make sure it all stays in place. And then it's time for this border. I'm going to use my tiny attacher again, because I like the way that looks on the fabric, and of course I'm going to glue it on the back of the fabric so it stays on my journal and it doesn't get ripped. Now the wax seal on top of that, some more glue, and now I'm going to glue the wax seal on it. And that's almost completely coming together like that. The favorite word. I also use my Nouveau Glow for the shrink foil elements, because with the Nouveau you can actually glue almost anything together. And as I already told you, it dries transparent, so I don't have to worry about getting all messy. Well, this is the end result of my altered journal. I hope I inspired you with the new collection and to make a journal for yourself. See you again next time. Bye bye.